Live streaming is on.
Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to Career Discovery Week, brought to you by Grad Ireland. I hope you're enjoying the virtual fair and taking on board all the advice and information that's on offer. So right now we're going to talk about interviews, how you can make the most of them and stand out, both in a face-to-face setting, but mainly focusing on virtual and video calls. So with me to discuss this topic is Aoife Dunican, image consultant and owner of the Style Bob. Hello, Aoife.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you keeping?
I'm grand. The sun is shining, nearly, so can't complain.
Well, it is where you are, definitely not where I am. We were meant to have Mark Kelly, who's the recruitment business partner at Lidl, but obviously, in these modern times, there's always technical issues. So hopefully Mark can join us, halfway through the session. But if not, we'll continue on. I'll play on with myself and Aoife. So if people watching would like to put any questions to our panelists, they can do so by using the chat box at the bottom of this video, and time permitting at the end, we'll come to them. So we'll kick off the session now, and Aoife, I'll start with a nice, easy generic one for you. So in your opinion, what makes a good interview or a good interviewee? What are the kind of 2 or 3 main elements you would associate with a good interview?
I suppose with any interview, with any communication, Piers, there is the what you say and how you say it. Okay, so obviously this morning, I'm going to concentrate a little bit of both. But if we talk about what you don't say and entering the room, that first impression is really, really important. So we're in a situation now where we could go into a room beforehand, go up to the people, shake hands, just make a big entrance, and we can't do that anymore. So I think from a non-verbal point of view, it's how we can create a 3D presence in a 2D space, because we are reduced to this. This is going to be our interview space. So non-verbal accounts for up to 80% of what we say. So it's really important to get that right. So in interview space, the minute we click start meeting, you are in front of the screen. And whether we like it or not, Piers, we do judge people within the first 7 seconds of meeting them. Now, you could actually say, oh gosh, that's very shallow. That's not something that I want to be part of. But we see before we hear, we actually can't help it. So what I'd like to say to people is to empower themselves about what impression you want to give on the screen. Now, if we step back, Pearson, if I'm going to appear this morning with you, the first question I ask myself today is, how do I want to feel? So I have to dress for confidence first. So I have to think of my colors. I'm obviously a colour consultant as well, and colours are very important, especially for women when it comes to the screen, because we are dressed to something very, very small. So if I wear a weak colour or white or black, the pixels on the screen don't like white or black, I won't show impact or energy on a screen. So first of all, think of yourself. How do I want to feel today? You dress for confidence, because part of how you dress, a lot of how you dress is for confidence. Secondly, look at your landscape. So who am I going to be talking to? Who do I need to make that first impression to? So is it going to be professional services like the Big Four? Is it going to be a techie company? But, no matter who it is, you still have to, you can't just assume because it's a technical company that you can go in there in a hoodie and that everything is going to be fine. You have to dress to impress. It's old fashioned, but it could be that small, minute, non-verbal difference between you and another person. So I suppose going in and trying to create that first impression, I'm in my room, I click on a screen, and there you are, and I've just ended meeting with somebody before you. So what do I do to create that energy in the screen? The most important thing for me, if somebody was to say background versus lighting, of course your background has to be, doesn't have to have Ulysses in the background and all that. But in an ideal world, we would have a pretty neutral background. If we could say something interesting about ourselves, great. But you know what? I wouldn't focus too much on that. I would really focus on the eyes and lighting, because the most expressive part of our face is our eyes, okay? And I think when you can actually reflect light onto our face, we can actually show our enthusiasm, our passion, our knowledge for a subject. So I would say to you, very easy to do this. I am now sitting, not in my house, but I'm sitting in front of a window. The window is projecting light back into me as opposed to behind me. I can put a lamp behind the screen. I can put an IKEA force light, an adjustable light, covered with a sheet, just to create light onto the face. But that's that first impression. What we wear, I spoke to you about colours. So for certain colors mean certain things. So if we talk about, let's say a gentleman, blue is the most popular color in the world. Blue is the color of communication and trust. Color affects our eyes' wavelengths of light. So I would say we try and wear color right up to our face, because it's really important here for girls and for boys that, especially if girls wear a V-neck, we're going to look naked. We have to be really careful about wearing leopard print or we look like Joe Tiger. So I would say the simple thing we can do is take our neckline right up, not because we want to look all serious and stuffy. It's just that we are only going to be seen from the chest up. So we can't afford to be sleeveless, to have too much skin around the place. Another important thing as well is how we look at the camera. So at the moment, Pierce, I'm not looking at you, but I am looking at you. And it's really, really difficult. This is when you have to practice. You've got to set up a fake meeting, look in a screen, and actually just stare at the camera, because eye contact is so important. If we were sitting in a real live interview, we would make sure we would look at that person all the time. Another thing as well is that if you're at home and you're in your Ugg slippers and you go and dress from the waist up, that's absolutely fine. What I would say to you is get 2 pillows right behind your back to project your voice. So when I sit like this, my voice is dropped, okay? My 2 pillows are behind. It reminds me to lift the chest, to project my voice outwards. And trust me, try this at home. It's different from going from this to this. So straight away, it's confidence. Also, when I sit up my 2 fake pillows here behind me, I am actually showing that I am interested in what you're saying. I'm enthusiastic. I'm listening. I'm passionate about the job, as opposed to be, yeah, I really don't want to be here. And that's okay too, but we don't want to show that. That's so important. And then I talk about things like, interesting one, a thing called layering, and people think it's about clothes. It's actually to do with your hands. So if we were in an interview in a seat, we would be sitting there saying, well, when I did this in that summer, and then I did this and I did the other, that's still just as important on a screen. But the problem is if I do it down here, nobody can see me. So I can be as expressive as I want, but actually doesn't matter. So I've got to get used to bring the hands up. We don't want to get all octopus and all that kind of stuff. But if we can bring the hands up, it is just so important. Again, all of these things, Pierce, are the small, tiny differences between you and the next person, okay? Another thing as well is we talked about layering, which is the hand, we talked about lighting, we talked about lifting. An important thing too is that although we need to be into the screen like this and listen all the time, if you've got 2 people interview, which that seems to be the case now, what I hear, you've got to learn to kind of sit back a bit too, okay? So if they're talking to you, remember, they're probably going to be both in their home. One will have a certain script, the other will have the other. So don't be in their face all the time, okay? It's a bit intimidating. If I was in a room with you, I wouldn't be like this. So I would say if you're going to talk to me, I'll sit back, I'll listen. It allows me to take a breath, think about what the hell I'm going to say back to them, and then sit back in again. And that movement actually just shows that I'm interested, I prepared my answer, and that's really important. So that's just really, that whole piece is that non-verbal piece that's really important to touch on. And I will go into more, and probably another question as well, about actually what you do wear to an interview, but certainly that's the body language piece that's really important for non-verbal.
Yeah, I think you made some great points there, Aoife. It's about kind of feeling natural or creating a natural setting in an unnatural world that we live in now, kind of the virtual setting. But I do think it's important to say, I think some people might thrive in the video setting as well, because some people might struggle face to face or find that someone's really nervous, whereas on a video call you can maybe hide it a little bit better. You know, it's easier to take a sip of water when people are speaking like I'm doing now. But you've made me very self-conscious of my style now, where I'm sitting and how I'm speaking, and so I have to try and remember to use the hands a bit more now. So you touched on a lot of great points there, Aoife, about how you dress and, you know, dressing to feel confident. And it's interesting what you say there. You know, a lot of people might just say straight away, look, wear the full suit, make sure you're wearing trousers and everything. But you're saying, no, if you feel comfortable, you know, just, you can wear your pajamas on the bottom half, whatever, obviously to make sure you don't stand up mid-interview. But for these interviews, especially from a virtual setting, I think people might feel silly wearing a suit for an interview. So do you think it's possible? I think it is possible to be too casual. I think everyone would agree with that. But is it possible to overdress, especially in this kind of virtual world that we now live in?
Well, that's a great question, Piers. And actually, just before I answer that, a point you really mentioned there about people being self-conscious about this, because like you said, some people are really comfortable in this environment. You know, there's no bother to them at all, and they're very confident. So what I would say to the people who are not comfortable in it, and that's quite a lot of people, and that's absolutely okay, is I would turn on and do a fake Zoom with yourself. I know it sounds really stupid, but I would stand there and talk to myself for 10 minutes. Because remember, you're going to be seeing yourself. I'm looking at myself at the top right hand corner of the screen, and it just means that you don't get a bit scared of your face when it comes up on the screen. So that's really important. Yeah. So just around the suit thing, it's interesting because I was doing a webinar last week to a wealth management firm, and they said, you know, they're managing people's money. And they said, you know, I feel a bit stupid now appearing in a shirt and tie in front of a client, you know, because we are all in a home environment. And so what I would say to you there is that you still have to check your landscape, okay? For professional services, I would say to you that you still need the shirt and tie, okay? As you know, I used to work for Deloitte, and we would always look at the people that came through the door properly dressed. And really what that shows is respect for the people that you're going to work for more than anything else, right? Now, I would probably not go with the jacket, shirt and tie on an interview right now, but I think I would, for professional services, I definitely would do a shirt and tie, okay? Now, it's interesting because you might get somebody that's a little bit old-fashioned on the other side. Not old-fashioned is the wrong word, but that somebody might say, oh, well, John appeared in a shirt and tie, or you know, Mary appeared in a jacket and dress. So you could say to yourself, is there such a thing as overdressed? So professional services, I think you could go either way. If you feel a total twat, let's say, in a shirt and tie and jacket, I probably would at least go with a shirt and tie, right? I think when it comes to technology companies, you've got the Facebook, the Googles and Twitter. Always check a dress code. Now, straight off, we can, you know, I was in LinkedIn recently and everybody's very casually dressed. But remember, you don't work there yet. Okay, that's really important to know. They work there. They can dress like that. They've earned their stripes. You haven't. So what I would say to you is that in that situation, don't let your dress hold you back. That somebody else made a very good concentrated effort and you didn't. So again, it's about respect. So I think in a technology firm, I would at least go, depending on the job, I would at least go with the blue shirt for men and a nice structured, I get into more now about the girls with what they could wear as well, a nice structured top. I'd err on the side of caution. Remember, you are dressing for the job you want, not the job you have.
Yeah, exactly. Again, there's some just great points there. And even with the suit, the shirt and the tie, it's amazing. That can give people a lot of confidence, you know, it can make you feel professional, and it might normalize it a bit as well. If that's what you were planning to wear for your face-to-face interview, if you, I think someone made a point the other day, dress as if you were going to dress for the face-to-face one. Now, obviously, as you make a great point there, normally you might wear a suit jacket, but obviously take that off. You're indoors, you know, you're not fooling anyone with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, like, as obviously, so if you're like an image consultant, and image is really, really important. But so how now with the virtual interviews and the video calls, how do you build a presence and make your personality stand out? Especially now, I think, you know, you can, people can use virtual backgrounds. I think everyone's going to choose neutral colors. So it can kind of be, you're interviewing the same people kind of continuously, especially if you've got the same background and they're dressed the same. So as a student or a graduate looking to get their first graduate role, how do you make your personality stand out, and how do you kind of stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, exactly. Well, first of all, you've got to look at your own personal brand, Piers, okay? So as an image consultant, my brand is around creativity, uniqueness, energy. So the minute the screen comes on and you see me, you know, I am probably going to be in color, because color on a screen is even, like I said, is even more important because we're reduced now to a post stamp effectively, especially if we're in a large call. So that color and energy through a screen is really important. Just a little bit about color psychology. Red is the color of confidence and adrenaline and energy. So if I was wearing bright red today, I'd come on the screen and you kind of go, okay, all right, you know, she's feeling confident today, okay? And the reason why is that we view color through long wavelengths of light. Red is a long wavelength of light, which means it holds our presence for longer. So stop signs are in red for that reason. Okay, it's alert, it's adrenaline and all that. You'd never see a stop sign in pastel because you'd actually drive through the light. Okay, the red is that real adrenaline, strong, confident color. I have it. Blue is the color of communication. So for a guy to wear blue, it's that real trust. Some of our most famous leaders in the world, if we think of Obama, always wore blue for that that very trusting look. Our current, the President of the United States, President Trump, wears red for that real kind of confidence. So when it comes to certainly, I would say a gentleman, he should wear blue, but girls need to look at that big differentiation of color, because if I start to blend into my background, I'm just blending, I'm just blending. If I'm going for a creative job, I can wear a really interesting neck piece here because somebody can see it, especially if I'm going for a marketing job where my job is to communicate. I need to look like I can communicate the minute that screen comes on. So think of the 3 values you want to get across and think how your clothes can do it. Color is one, detail is another, background's another. Just make sure your background is like I said, don't wear nude colors because we will look honestly like we are blending in. I had a situation last week, somebody was going for a big leadership role and avoid black. It is dead on the screen. Absolutely dead on the screen. It whatever way the light picks it up, it's not very good. Navy's marginally better. White makes us really pale. It just draws up massive paleness onto the screen, and it's just very dead. In terms of our makeup, this is a time where we can get, I won't say adventures with makeup, but certainly for girls, it's really important that we open our eyes up and don't go heavy on eye makeup, but go heavy on concealer, on our eyebrows, on our blush, on our lipstick. Because thing is that if you ever see people going on news or on TV, they're caked in makeup. When you actually see them on the TV, with all the light coming on their face, they actually look normal. So this is a great time. Yellow is the color of joy, pink is the color of self-love, blue is your real safe, communication color, green is the color of balance and renewal. Leo Varadkar wore it on his famous speech on Patrick's Day. I know it's Patrick's Day, but green is that sense of rebirth, renewal. So don't shy away from boring colors. Brown, don't get me wrong, brown is a great color, but it's that kind of sensible, neutral color. So if you're going to wear navy blacks and browns and grays, wear them in your jacket, but wear a good color here. Careful with ladies with t-shirt dresses. They may be a great cut, but it'll look to me like you're wearing a t-shirt. Okay, so that's really important. But that light on your face is just the expression you can give around that is just key.
Yeah, like again, you've had some great points there, but even I think some people with nerves and interviewing, they might want to blend in a little bit. So they might want to be like, oh, I've a blue background wall, I'll wear blue, or like say if you beige background, I'll wear a beige top. But no, you want to stand out now. It's important now more than ever because you're doing it via video calls that you need to stand out. So think about the colours and what you want to wear, and even something small, the white shirt with a red tie, it stands out. And even I'm sure like does happen. Like if it comes down between 2 people for an interview, it's like, oh, but he was the person, or she was the girl who wore it. They stand out. I remember them really well. They made this great point. It does make a difference.
Yeah, and be careful of negative distractors as well, Pierce, as well. I remember listening to some people coming out of an interview years ago, and they said, oh yeah, remember the girl with the chipped nails? And I said, gosh, that's an awful, that girl was probably absolutely wonderful and brilliant, but now that's what they're remembering her by, in an old fashioned way, say, don't let yourself down. You've worked so hard, but by the way, to get to interview stage. So don't let small things let you down.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's great. And we touched on a little bit about, nervousness, and maybe people who, who don't like face-to-face meetings are actually now a little bit less nervous doing the video calls. But if you do have a video interview and you are nervous, especially before and during, are there ways to reduce the nerves? Like, is it too much practice a bad thing? You were saying, practice the Zoom calls, but then can you become maybe almost too comfortable and overthink it? So what's a good way of reducing nerves and stress?
Okay, so a couple of things here. So in the old way, we'd have a big piece of paper outside and we'd be looking at it on the bus and we'd be, my strengths, my challenges, all that kind of stuff. So now we obviously don't have that anymore. So what people have said to me is, I'm going to put them down on my laptop. And I said, don't put them down on your laptop, because then I'm looking at this and that's not good. So what I've done, actually, my 13-year-old daughter taught me this morning, because I'm not in my home, is she gave me 6 sticky pads for the top of my computer. Okay. So I'm now staring at my camera, and she said, write down the 3 to 6 things that you want to get across in this interview. Okay. And what actually happens, Pierce, is that you never look at them. Okay. But it's a comfort blanket, right? So it could be, like it might be actually a sentence that always gets you a little bit, every time you say it, you just get a little bit flustered, right? So even just write down that one sentence right beside your camera. And even if you're reading it off, that's fine. It means that when it comes to that sentence, you're not going to get flustered. You can just say it and it comes out. There might be things like you did on a J1 summer where you showed leadership or teamwork. So put it down, even put down the name of the place, just any small little thing to remind you to actually do it. So that's really important. In terms of the nerves, a couple of things here. There's a fantastic video that everyone should watch, TED Talk, by a lady called, I think it's Amy Cuddington, and it is called Fake It Till You Make It, right? Mm-hmm. And it sounds so simple. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I won't even pretend I've seen it.
Okay,
So I'll let you explain it.
What it is that she has this thing that before she stands up and before she do something that she's uncomfortable with, she kind of stands up, in the bathroom, hands on hips, and does this kind of superwoman pose, right? And although it's absolutely sounds hideous and ridiculous, and make sure nobody sees you, it actually tells the brain, I've got this, okay? Because, like I said, congratulate yourself to have got to this stage and to get the interview, okay? So you need to just say, these people, first of all, want to interview you. It's not like they don't want to speak to you. They want to interview you. So you just get yourself up and you just stand in front of it. The other thing is box breathing, okay? So it's 5 and 5 and 5. So it's count in for 5, hold for 5, breathe out for 5. It slows the brain down. It slows the mind down. Because let's face it, in an ideal world, it's a bit like, doing the leaving cert, you wouldn't look at anything beforehand. It's supposed to be all up here. Same with interview. We can look at over it 100 times and we still forget what to say. So we need to get the head in a slow, calm place. So 5 minutes of box breathing is really important. That and the hands up beforehand. Like I said, it feels ridiculous and so simple, but it works.
Yeah, great tips there. I think the thing with the sticky notes as well is that's something you wouldn't have had the opportunity to do in a face-to-face interview.
No.
Like, you wouldn't have been able to, that's a point I should remember to make, or I know this really interesting fact about the company, I should write that down. Then you sit in front of the face-to-face interview and it completely just goes out of your mind because you've been asked 6 or 7 questions and you forgot it. But you can write all these in sticky notes and no one can see. And if you're looking at the camera, it's very hard for people to tell if you're reading. And this is just a question about just what I think about the top of my head. Do you think now companies expect maybe a higher standard of interview candidates because virtually, you can use sticky notes, you can do a bit more preparation, or do you think it's the same, they expect the same standard as before the pandemic hit?
Well, I think in fairness to both the interviewer and the interviewees, this is just so new to everyone. And I think there is a little bit of, in a good way, there's a little bit of gentleness out there. Having said that, if we think of Milk Round, which will be, let's say you'd be key interviewing around October time. By then, I think we said this Pierce before the call, the standard will have up a little bit. People will expect, but you know what? Not everyone's going to know this stuff. Not everyone's going to know. I mean, if you think of the amount of calls everybody is on where people's face are not lit up, people are not wearing the right colors, people are not doing all these small little things. And again, these people are going to be interviewing lots of people. And actually just on that point as well, is that you now don't have the chance as a student to, I suppose, network like you used to. So certainly in my old job, we would have had massive presence at the Grad Ireland Fair, obviously, and we would have had all the college fairs where you can go and meet people and all of that. So I suppose there's a few ways around that. First of all, that look at your LinkedIn profile. I never would have thought it was actually important for a student, but what I see now is that if I'm going to interview somebody, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look them up on LinkedIn. And the reason why, I won't always look them up on LinkedIn, but I have no other opportunity or place to see them, right? So what I would say about that is make sure your LinkedIn photograph it doesn't have to be professional. It needs to look professional, right? And the reason why I say that is that when you come up on my screen, you are not to look totally dissimilar to how you look on LinkedIn, okay?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, don't be on LinkedIn, look like you're having fun. That's okay too, if it's, but when the screen comes on, don't let it be so dissimilar. Because remember, this is the first time I'm seeing you. And just on the networking thing, a lot of companies are having a lot of free stuff at the moment. So if you go and follow Deloitte, EY, I'm talking any not necessarily big four, they're all doing free webinars at the moment. So this is a fantastic way to listen to what their future is, right? So you can drop that in an interview. Just write down the key 3 notes of what their issues are now. It's probably pretty obvious, all to do with COVID, but you'll get a sense of what their company values are, and they are all free. You can sign up. And I would say as well, people who come into Deloitte and they used to go on summer internships, I would say make sure you make use of your contacts that are there. But Dublin Chambers of Commerce, there's so many places that are doing free stuff now, that there is that chance to get to know people beforehand.
Yeah, and I think great point about the free webinars that companies are running, and because they're all free and anyone can access them, I think these companies will, especially if you want to work for them and you're going for an interview, they expect you to have watched them, I think, almost. So, and most people I think who will go for an interview will take Deloitte, for example, if they've run a webinar on, interviewing during COVID-19. If you haven't watched it, I guarantee you 8 other people who have gone to the interview have watched it. So do try and soak up all the free material that is out there, and it is worth your while as well. Even if it doesn't help you with that specific interview, it will help you for another one. So we're getting loads of questions coming through. So just before I get to them, just a couple of ones to finish, Annie. So we talk about the importance of dress, and that's how you make a good impression. But in terms of the first impression, I think that's something that a lot of people put a lot of stock in. I think especially for interviews. So maintaining strong eye contact, the firm handshake, that's all been taken out of the equation. So there's small things people can do to make a good first impression. Again, even maybe touching on style and how you dress.
Yeah. So like I said, the key thing here is, like I said, the minute that meeting room turns on, enter meeting, your face needs to look bright and expressive straight off. Okay. So don't go to the dark room. Make sure the light is behind the computer. My window is currently in front of me. If it was behind me, you just see my outline. So that is really important. Lift up your camera. I have my computer elevated at about 4 cookbooks at the moment. So lift it up, because the last thing people want to see, I suppose, are your nostrils. That's really important. But that lighting, like I said, it just get a cheap light. I have my own professional Zoom light at home because I'm doing this kind of stuff all the time. But that lighting, lifting up is key. Play around in the room certain times of the day with light. Obviously, you can't have disturbances. You have to make sure the room is closed. Sometimes you can actually find something, a bit of personality in the background, even if it's a painting or whatever it is. That's really important, because that can show a fun side. I would not, Pierce, go for fake backgrounds, okay? Because in any interview, you need to show your true and authentic self. That's really important. So if I put in a fake background behind me, I'm not going to look like I'm hiding something. Okay, straight off, I'm hiding. So the minute that person, you come on the screen, again, pillows behind you, sit straight up, have your sticky notes there ready, and trust me, that comfort blanket will be huge. And just think again that it's as difficult for them as it is for you. That's something to really remember. This is they, of course they'd love to see you in a sitting, in an original sitting in their office. Of course that would, but that's not going to be the case. So that lighting, the energy, the colors, the professionalism, again, what do I say in my first 7 seconds? And what I say to girls as well is do the fake, put on exactly what you're going to wear for that interview. You know, look, you don't have the hair done, but have the makeup, do your makeup even in front of a Zoom call, a fake one, and see, do I create that energy, creativity on the screen straight away? And trust me, if I'm opening my screen and I somebody there looking enthusiastic, well lit, you know, creating energy versus somebody in a dark room, not making an effort, straight away, I have actually not switched off, but I'm thinking that person really does not want to be here. And the person who, just on that note, the person who came into Deloitte and worked in summer internships, and the ones I remember are the ones who come up and said, Aoife, can I give you a hand on anything? Aoife, can I, you know, is there anything I can, you know, anything, do you want me to write a blog for you? Like, you know, it's that creativity and expression is just, you know, will always stand to you.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Zoom background there, and we actually had a question about, is it okay to use a virtual background on Zoom? And you advised against it, you know, because it looks like you're hiding something. But just for example, say if there was someone and, you know, maybe they live in a small house and they've got a lot of family members with them, maybe due to the pandemic, grandparents are staying, and it's hard to find, you know, all the nice kind of rooms are taken up, or it's hard to find a nice background. Would you say you're better off maybe using a virtual background and then drawing attention to it and saying, oh, I'm really sorry, but I've had to use the virtual background just to put some photos on the wall, or not use it and just say, I'm sorry, the background is a bit of a mess, but I'm in a small house. What would you advise on that?
I'd say, well, look, in an ideal world, the virtual background, you know, it looks a bit of a cover up.
Yeah.
So what I would say to you is that if you have a moving light with you, okay, a lamp or a plug outside the wall, I would find a corner somewhere in the room. It doesn't have to have pictures in the back, and it can be, I won't say a hot mess, but somewhere a corner that you can plug in a light and make sure it's not necessarily about the background, Piers, it's about lighting up you. Okay. So I would do my damnedest if you can to just try and find that space. If you can't, you go with the fake background, and I'm thinking you don't want to start apologizing for something. You know, you don't want to start off saying, look, apologies about this or whatever, or else you could actually go totally crazy and have a fun background. You know, you could have, I don't know, the Irish rugby team in the back. You know, there could be something where you say, look, you know what, this is what I love, or I'm into something, you know, and you could then make it part of who you are. But don't go and put in then the fake books in the background. If you want to go with the background, go and do it and say, look, I'm going to make this part of who I am, and just do it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think because a lot of people might err on the side of caution, be, no, if you're going to use one, you know, if it does come to it and you have to use one, go for a neutral one, go for the fake office one. But I say you're wanting to stand out, you want your personality to come across. So maybe go for one if you're into, you know, sports or anything, you know, use that as your background to make yourself stand out. So just before we get to the questions, and we've loads of them coming in, thanks so much, everyone. Is there what are 2 or 3 main tips you'd like people to take away from this talk today?
Well, first of all, I'm just conscious as well, Piers, that we didn't touch on just the content of the. I know that's not my speciality, but I'm going to put on my other hat here as well. Just from like I said, I used to work in Deloitte, and I would say to people, you know, really make use of the networking opportunities that are available to you now, because companies are going out of their way to connect with people right now. Okay. I mean, obviously Brad Ireland are doing it this week. And I'm sure, Pierce, you have companies involved as well, doing lots of things with you this week. But they really are going out of their way, and, you know, link in with them. Sometimes that may not be possible if they're high up in the company. You know, write a paper on LinkedIn, maybe something that you've learned. You know, just do something interesting. You know, just get your creative hats on and write down, even if the particular industry you want to go for, or a particular company, write the name or the industry down in the middle on a big blank piece of paper, and just think of what words are associated with that. Just empty the head and just think, okay, what could I write a paper on it? What could I could research? You can even go on to, there's an amazing website called Coursera, Coursera. You could do a course on anything on that. Just try and work out ways to make yourself stand out. I think as well, before the interview, you look about that planning piece, and we've talked obviously about the image and that first impression, but that actually piece on the sticky notes is really important, okay? You might start off with 20 sticky notes, okay, which you obviously cannot do unless you have a very, very big screen. But just the questions you are going to be asked about. I think a big question around this, and I'm only guessing here, Piers, I'd love to see your opinion on it, will be how you actually managed through COVID, what you did through COVID, and even small things around, I made sure I went to every Grad Ireland webinar, or I tuned into what was going on. Just that's going to be a really important time. And even small things like, well, what you do for your community, what you do. That I actually think, and I say to my own kids who are going, they're going to be asking that question for years to come, right? What did I do? How did I stand out? And look, we all watch lots of Netflix and all, that's fine. But is there something that we did on a personal level? Because the future of I suppose big organizations now is almost go like a not-for-profit model in one way, but actually to be certainly, in Deloitte, it was all about social purpose and meaning and impact in the society. So, what did you do during that time? And like I said, I'm stepping outside my hat here around that. So that content piece, make sure you have a sticky pad that says COVID community, COVID development on your personal self. So that's really important. And I think as well, I mean, I would love to probably summarize and all this is enjoy it, certainly my time in Deloitte, we met some fantastic students. It was the enthusiasm, the freshness, the newness they can bring to an organization is absolutely huge. People now are hugely invested in students compared to years ago. Certainly in my time, you were lucky to get a call for an interview. But certainly now, a lot of brilliant people out there. So just think of how you can stand out, because to get through the door, I will say to you, in certain organizations, everyone has had to get to a particular level. Okay. It's all been relatively high. And again, it depends on the industry you're going for, but just look at the small little things that can make you stand out. And it's not about the 400 or 500, 600 points in the Leaving Cert. There's things that, you've done along the way, small experiences that will actually make you stand out from the next candidate, because people really do want to talk to you. You're not there because you're a number. People want the best fit for their organization.
Yeah, exactly. That's great, Aoife. And I think the point you make there is excellent about what did you do during this time, during the COVID lockdown, because that's a question I think that will come up in interviews now. I think it's easy to prepare for certain questions, and even over the last 10 years, there's generic questions that come up all the time in interviews that everyone is prepared for and everyone tries to come up with a unique answer. But you will be asked now, what did you do during lockdown? Did you register for any events? Could be even, did you raise money for charity doing running? Anything like that. How did you improve yourself? So just some great points there. I want to just get onto a few of the questions now, if that's right with you. So I think this is a good one here. I'll try and get to as many as I can. So apologies if I don't read out your question. But this is touching the Zoom background, which I think is good. Or should I send a follow-up email after a Zoom email thanking the company for the time? So I think that's a good question. So should you immediately email the person who interviewed you, or maybe someone HR you were in contact with, saying, thank you very much, I enjoyed the interview, it was great. It was a great experience.
Absolutely. Any little thing that if you have an email address, it's the tiny things that matter. So I would say, thank you very much for your time. And you could also make a small note. I really enjoyed it, given the environment it was in, because it's important that they know that they made an effort to you to make it a pleasurable environment. So yeah, any little thing you can do is really important like that.
Great. And I think there's something we actually didn't touch on during the talk, which is a good question here, which is how to deal with defeat, or, maybe a failure or a bad interview that you've had, and stay positive and resilient. I think especially now, because people might have lost out on interviews because of COVID. So what advice would you give to people to kind of maintain confidence and stay resilient and keep applying for jobs and keep going for interviews?
Great question, Piers. And like I said, it's very tough that all interviews, like I said, that you've got this opportunity now, or you don't have the opportunity of face to face. I would say, it's that old fashioned thing. You win some, you lose some. Okay. And so my mother used to always say to me when something like that, well, it wasn't for you and you want to go. So what I'd say to you, if you really wanted that interview, right, or you really wanted that job, don't think it's fully gone. Okay. You may have gotten sorry, we didn't work out, whatever it is, but things change in companies all the time, right? Things really change. People move about. Someone might not be able to take a job. We used to people deferring to math. We used to people deferring to travel. So what I would say is stay in contact with this company. This is a situation, Pierce, where you really, really wanted to work for that firm and you actually felt you were going to be a fantastic fit. So I would say to you, do not give up. The person that perseveres like that is someone that I would want them to work for me. So, if that situation, if it's a situation where you're kind of going, oh, actually, that's a shame. You learn from everything you do. It's very easy for me to say this, being older, but when you finish an interview and it didn't go well, right, just sit down and say, what would have helped there? Because a lot of the time, Pierce, it's confidence and nerves. Okay. So people would say to me, oh, look, does it really matter what I'm wearing? Actually, yes, it does, because if you didn't feel good in it, it's going to affect your confidence. So look back at what can, first of all, I feel to make myself feel fantastic into the interview. Number one, it's how you look. And number two, it's that you know your stuff. Okay. You know what you want to say. So you do need to kind of do a bit of an analysis afterwards and go, oh gosh, I was a bit confused when I saw two of them on the screen, didn't know where to look. My hands were like this, I was like that. You actually do need to be ruthless with yourself and say because your first one or two, I'll be totally honest, Pierce, they're not going to be perfect. 3 and 4 will be marginally better, but I think the more prepared we are in terms of how we feel, the impression we want to give, the better the interview is going to be.
Yeah, and I think, although it's a cliche point to make, I think failure is experience. Do you mean? I think if you do have a bad interview and you made a point and you were like, oh, I shouldn't have made that, that was a bad thing to say. Well, taking forward in a future interview, I won't say that again. You've taken out and you've improved the process. So it is about, learning from your experiences, as cliche as that it is to say. There's a couple of questions here about, video interviews and about, connectivity issues or distractions, what you should do. And I think people get caught between two stools, which is one, maybe ignoring it, or maybe they haven't heard that or something happening, or owning it and maybe kind of bringing attention to it. So how would you deal with if someone walks in, or even your internet is a bit wonky? Okay.
So first of all, wonky internet is yuck. Like I said, have my mobile Wi-Fi this morning. You really have to try. Certainly in my house a few weeks ago, I had a terrible webinar that I was giving, and everything, anyway, it was not good. So I think you have to make sure, get everybody off the mobile in the house. I know that's really difficult. People are working from home. You could have all your brothers and sisters or whatever it is on the mobile, but you really need to say, look, this is important, guys. You've got to get that off. Yeah. From a sound point of view, I've had a few discussions about this. There's a company, and I need to get this right. I think it's called Crisp, right? So I was on a webinar a few weeks ago, and the lady who was presenting it said she was able to mute all her background sound, but not her.
Okay.
And I think it was KRISP. I hope I got that right. It's something small you can put on your, I don't know, again, look it up because I'm not educated enough to know about it. I think in an ideal world, we'd have the earpiece, but see me, the perfect thing is if you've got earphones that go in here with, the mouthpiece or
the microphone, exactly, yeah.
Here. What I have heard is that is just as effective. I've got a mic here attached to it, a big fluffy mic attached to this. But certainly the lady that was giving the webinar a few weeks ago, she did black earphones here, right? So you couldn't actually see this headpiece if you're worried about your hair and all that. Black earphones here. And then she had the small little thing just hang there. And she said she's tested lots of them and this was the most effective because your piece was here. But then she used Crisp, whatever that was, to mute out the background. But no, look, it is, really, you've got to try, if it's an important interview, just say people, I am in here, you know, I know that's hard if you're in student residence and all that, but you've got to do the best you can. And look, like if something does happen, if you've lots of cars passing by, or if somebody comes just say, look, I'm really sorry about it, acknowledge it and move on. Just make sure it doesn't put you off more than anything else. Just move it on.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like I said, I think people are understanding now the circumstances of, you know, you're not living, if you're not living alone, people will walk in and out. Your internet will drop. They're not things you can control, unfortunately. And I think people are sympathetic. And I think from my point of view, it's the reason for these webinars I wear headphones, because it's easier for me to hear, and the microphone means it doesn't pick up kind of outside noise. So I find that works for me. And like I said, if you're self-conscious maybe, or if you don't want to mess up your hair and you don't want to wear the overhead earphones, you can, you know, put in the Apple AirPods or the wired ones if you really have to. Just a final question here for you, which I think is a great one, which is the best way to market yourself for a new career. And this person is saying they've only got hospitality experience. But I think even in general, if you maybe have a degree in something particular and you decide you want to change your career, but maybe you've spent a while building your personal brand on LinkedIn, you know, for that particular career, how do you go about changing that?
But first of all, experience is fantastic. I made obviously a massive career change myself. So what I would say to you is that on a positive note, that people are looking, certainly I know in Deloitte, we are some of our best graduates were science and music graduates. So you'd say to yourself, gosh, a degree in music, what's that got to do with accounting or technology, professional services? But you need to show that the skills you learned in the hospitality industry are totally transferable to the industry you want to get into. And trust me, when you actually look through about people, communication, problem solving, marketing, I'm thinking hospitality, they are totally usable in any industry going forward. So I think what you need to show is that it would not be just your skills, but that the passion you have to move into another industry. So that's maybe where you say to somebody, okay, I think the biggest thing if you want somebody is do a little bit of free work at the start, Pierce, as well, just to see if you like it, if you're going to make the change. So I know that's what I did when I changed career, but do a little bit of free work just to show your passion that you really, really want to make this change. Because the thing is that you need to see for yourself if it is for you for a start. But I would say even 1 or 2 days or something like that to show the interviewer that, look, this really is for me. I did this and I absolutely loved it. But look at transferable skills, because communication, people, problem solving, all those things, unless you're going into a very specific niche area like medicine or technology, whatever, they're all fully transferable.
That's brilliant. Perfect answer, Aoife. So thank you so much for your time and bearing with us during all the technical difficulties we had this morning. So that's great. And I hope everyone enjoyed that session and is enjoying the fair going forward. So thanks again, Aoife, and thank you so much for your time.
That's great. And if anybody has any questions, Pierce, they can DM me on my Instagram, because I'm conscious we may not have answered them all.
Okay.
It's just at the, I don't know if it's there, but it's at the Style Bob on Instagram, at the Style Bob. And I can certainly answer any questions that we may not have got covered this morning.
Okay, brilliant. Perfect. So at the Style Bob on Instagram. Yeah. Thank you so much, Aoife.
That's great. Okay. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.